All right, let's talk about generative AI. If you're trying to get your team to actually use it for real work, but you feel like you're just drowning in overly complicated plans, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and build a simple, practical GenAI playbook that people can actually remember and use. Let's get into it.
Does this sound familiar? I mean, we've all seen those AI strategies, right? They look amazing in a presentation, but they are just impossible to actually put into practice. They're too academic, too bloated, and honestly, they just don't work in the real world. That feeling that this has all gotten way too complicated, that is the exact problem we're here to solve today. So, what's the alternative to all that complexity? It's these three words. We need to compress the strategy down to its absolute essentials. We need crystal clarity on what to do and when to do it. And maybe most important of all, it has to be usable. Something your team can apply on Monday morning without needing a PhD. That's the goal.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to diagnose why most AI strategies fail. Then, I'll give you one simple principle that changes everything. After that, we'll walk through a super practical 5-step workflow, cover the rules for writing good prompts, and then we'll finish up by talking about the biggest risk of all, something called fake adoption.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Why do so many of these well-intentioned AI plans just end up gathering dust on a digital shelf? Well, the root cause is almost always the same thing: complexity. You know the ones I'm talking about. The 8-step frameworks with a million sub-bullets and a whole page of dense philosophical nonsense. Look, here's the hard truth. If your team can't hold the plan in their head, they are never, ever gonna put it into practice. And the outcome is totally predictable. Nothing happens. Complexity is the #1 enemy of execution.
Okay, so if complexity is the enemy, then simplicity has to be our weapon. This next idea, this is the foundation for our entire playbook. It's a mental shift, and it reframes the entire challenge of using AI.
Now, listen closely, because this is so important. The goal is not to just sprinkle some AI on top of your old processes. That's like putting a jet engine on a horse-drawn carriage. The real game-changing win comes from fundamentally redesigning your workflow from the ground up, building it around the specific things that AI is actually good at. That mindset shift right there, that's everything.
So with that core principle in mind, that we're redesigning work, not just adding a tool, how do we actually do it? Well, let's build it out. Here is your actionable 5-step playbook. This is where the theory stops and the real work begins.
Here are the 5 steps. We're going to make our work visible, use AI like a scalpel, not a hammer, break big jobs into tiny tasks, design our output first, and then we'll use a very specific rule for crafting our prompts. Let's break down each one. Step 1. You have to make the workflow visible. Before you can automate or improve anything, you have to actually understand it. For any task, you have to be able to say with total clarity, here's what goes in, here's the thinking that happens, and here's what comes out. Here's the bottom line. If you can't map it out this simply, you have no chance of applying AI to it effectively.
Step 2 is all about being strategic. AI is not a magic wand. It's fantastic at language tasks, writing, summarizing, drafting things. But it is not the right tool for heavy-duty data analysis in a spreadsheet or for making the final, high-stakes business decision. People's biggest mistake? They try to get AI to do the entire job in one go. You need to be a surgeon, not a sledgehammer.
Which brings us right to step 3, break it down. Every single prompt you write should have one and only one clear job. Think in a sequence. First, a prompt to extract information. The next prompt analyzes that info. Then another one formats it. And finally, a human, you, steps in to validate. If you try to cram all of that into one monster prompt, I promise you, it will fail silently. It will give you an answer that looks right but is actually deeply flawed.
Step 4 is a rule I see people break all the time. Design your output first, then write your prompt. Don't just show up to the AI with a vague idea and hope for the best. You have to be the architect. Before you write a single word of your prompt, you should know exactly what the final output needs to look like. What are the sections? What's the logic? You have to lead the AI. It is not going to lead you.
All right, we have our 5-step strategy. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of execution, the specific tactics for writing killer prompts, and the absolute must-follow rules for using AI safely.
This right here is the 6+2 rule for a perfect prompt, and trust me, it's a game changer. You start with 6 core pieces. You tell the AI its role, give it the context, state the objective, define the structure and the format you want, and add any constraints. Then, to really take it to the next level, you add the 2 plus factors, a concrete example of what a good answer looks like, and any reference material it needs to use. This formula just removes all the guesswork.
Now, let's talk about something that is completely non-negotiable. You must always validate the output. Check the facts and the numbers for accuracy. Check if it's actually relevant to the question you asked. And then just do a gut check. Does this thing even make sense? Please remember this. If you skip validation, you are not saving time. You are just outsourcing your mistakes.
And hey, here's a little pro tip for you. A quick way to validate. After the AI gives you a response, just ask it these 2 simple questions. What assumptions did you make? This forces it to tell you about any logical leaps it took. And then, what is uncertain here? This gets it to flag the parts it's not so sure about. These 2 questions are incredibly powerful for quality control.
Okay, let's talk safety. These are hard and fast rules, folks. Never, ever, ever input personal data, confidential client info, or any kind of price-sensitive material into a public AI tool. The rule is simple. If you absolutely have to use sensitive context, you must thoroughly anonymize it first. No exceptions, period. So let's pull all this together into a real example. Good usage looks like this: a series of small, controlled steps. Turn your messy notes into a structured summary. Then use that summary to draft an email. Then run one last prompt to refine the tone. Bad usage? That's just dumping 200 pages of text and saying, analyze this and give me the final answer. See the difference? One is a professional process, the other is a lottery ticket.
And that brings us to our final section, and honestly, this might be the most important part. This is about the brutal reality of AI implementation, the hidden trap that trips up almost everyone. Let this one sink in for a second. Your company's biggest risk is not that somebody's going to use AI incorrectly and make a mistake. No, the biggest risk is that your entire team just pretends to use it, engaging in superficial, low-value tasks that have zero real impact on the business.
So what does this fake adoption look like? It's when everybody on your team is using AI to, draft a few simple emails, and they feel really productive. They're patting themselves on the back for using AI. But if you look closely, absolutely nothing meaningful about how the core work gets done is actually changed. It's just activity without any real progress.
Real value, on the other hand, is something you can see and measure. It's when core workflows are genuinely redesigned using the 5-step method we just talked about. It's when the time saved is actually tracked and reported, and it's when the quality of the final output, the reports, the client work, whatever it is, gets demonstrably better. That's the goal.
So I'll leave you with this one question. It's the one you need to be asking yourself and your team every single week. Are you just using AI as a new toy for the same old tasks, or are you truly using it as a catalyst to redesign how your most important work gets done? The answer to that question will determine everything.